Hi guys, I'm Tamara with Homegrown Devotion Homestead. Thank you for joining me this Sunday. So yesterday, was it yesterday? Yes, we went apple picking. And if you've never gone apple picking, you should definitely do it. We go every single year. There's a place up in the mountains that we love. Yesterday, we picked a whole bunch of apples. They also have a farm store where you can get apple seconds, which means that if you're gonna use them for applesauce or anything like that, they are not perfect. They look pretty perfect, but they may have like a bruise on them or they just can't sell them. So you get them at a discount. So I got a whole box of 40 apples. These are Mutsu apples. I got them 40 pounds of apples for $18. So we're gonna make some applesauce. So for the recipe, I'm gonna use 10 pounds of apples. That's about 35 apples. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them in my sink. Some of my favorite wash. Whether you buy organic or not, which you should if you can, you should always wash your fruits and vegetables. This is what I use. So I'm gonna put 35 apples in here to get them washed up so that we can cut them. Oops, splashed myself. Okay. So I will not peel these apples, but what I will make sure to do is that if there's any bruising or imperfections on it, I will cut that off and not use it. I will core them, however, and I got this little handy dandy apple corer. I have no idea where I got this from. I don't even know when I got it, but I use it all the time and I love it. So maybe I can find this and link it for you. So what I'm gonna do is this is how you use it. You just kind of put it in the middle of the apple, takes off the whole core. These will go to my chickens. They will love that. So I'm going to cut off any imperfections on the apples. And put that in there. And then I'm going to just chop it. It does not have to be perfect. I'm gonna put it in my crock pot. Did I mention this was Crockpot applesauce? It is. This is like the easiest way I can do it. I don't have to watch it. I can easily just have it cooking in the background. And after it's done, we'll can it. We'll water bath can it, and I can put it on the shelf for my kids. Makes my life so much easier. It's healthier. I know the ingredients, and it tastes great. And there's a sense of, not pride per se, but when you do it yourself, there's a sense of just accomplishment. So I love that too. So I'm gonna go ahead and core these apples and cut them up and get them in the crock pot. Okay, one thing that I failed to mention in the beginning was this applesauce has 3 ingredients. We're just gonna use apples, water, and cinnamon. I mean, you could put nutmeg in it, or if you want maple syrup, if you want maple syrup, you could do that. We're not gonna add any sugar to it because the apples are sweet enough. And so that's what we like. So if you would like to add sugar to it, you perfectly can, and it will taste delicious, but we're not gonna do that. I'm gonna cut the rest of these apples, and my crock pot is overfilling, but what's gonna happen is as they cook down, the top will be able to close. So, and if I'm gonna do this, honestly, like I'm trying to do as much as I can at once. I don't have a lot of time to like do 20 batches, so I'm gonna try to squeeze all these in as one. Make it as flat as I can. We're gonna cook them on high for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. There's a lot of these apples in there until they cook down. And when they are able to be pureed, I will do that. And then I'll add the cinnamon and anything else that I'm gonna add to this batch. One more apple. Let's cut this part off. Perfect. So if you ever go apple picking, you can even get organic or whatever apples you want from the store and make applesauce. You'll be in charge of the ingredients and it tastes great. But if you ever go apple picking, usually there's like a farm store, and ask them if they sell seconds, because you're gonna get so much a better deal on the apples, and you don't have to pick them all. We did pick a lot, but we didn't have to pick this whole box of 40-pound apples. So my crock pot is filled to the rim. of these delicious apples. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the cover on as best as I can, and I'm gonna let it cook itself down. Okay. So I'll be back with you when it cooks down. Okay, this is where I'm at. I am just gonna keep stirring it. As you can see, it's kind of cooked down a little bit. So now I'm able to put the top on it. I'm just gonna let it cook down till it gets nice and soft, and then I'm gonna use my Immersion Blender, and you can use whatever blender you want to kind of puree all of the apples. So let's put it in there, let it cook a little longer. Yay! They taste so good. These apples taste excellent. So I've been like snagging one or two off the top of my crock pot. So good. Okay guys, so it's cooked down. Remember, I couldn't even close the top at first. So it's cooked down, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna carefully use my Immersion Blender to blend it all up. And then I am going to add some cinnamon sticks, and I'm gonna let it simmer on low for a couple hours until I'm ready to can it, okay? So let's turn this up. If you don't have an immersion blender, you can always put it in a regular blender. It's probably going to be quicker that way, but you can use an immersion blender, regular blender. You can even probably use a food processor, and to get it to the consistency that you like. We like ours real smooth, not too smooth, but we don't like super chunky. The kids won't eat it. So you get to determine that, which your family likes. Okay, so I have blended this up a lot. I will blend it more once it cooks down some more, but while I have it, and before I put the lid back on, let me move this out of the way, I'm gonna add 2 cinnamon sticks to it, because that gives it the flavor, cinnamon flavor that we like. So I'm gonna let this cook for a little bit. Just on low for a couple hours, and then I will come back to blend it some more and take the cinnamon sticks out. Okay, we are back. Our applesauce is done, so we're gonna go ahead and can it. So before you can, you wanna make sure that your jars are clean. I'm going to use quart jars. You actually don't have to sanitize them if your processing time is more than 10 minutes, so that works perfectly. You wanna make sure the tops of your canning jars don't have any chips or anything like that in them. And you want to make sure that you pay attention to the headspace. So when you can applesauce, you have to have leave a headspace of 1/2 inch. And if you look closely on here, you can see that the first line is 1 inch. Well, you can't see, but it's a little trick. The first line is 1 inch, the second line is 1/2 inch, and the top line is 1/4 inch. So that way you don't have to measure, you can just use the lines. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get our funnel. We are gonna fill our jars. Forgot to mention, over here I have my water bath canner going, and basically it's a huge stock pot that fits all of my jars. It's boiling, and it has to be at a rolling boil before you can start your processing time, but I'll show you once I put it in there. And what's really important when you are water bath canning is to always have a kettle or something of boiling water, because if you by chance have to add more water to cover the tops of your jars, and it's the temperature is not up as high as the temperature in here, it's going to stop the processing, and then you're going to have to start all over. So always make sure that you have a kettle that is boiling. Okay, so here we go. The stuff is hot, so be careful. So I'm going to add my applesauce to my jar. Remember, I'm doing a half inch headspace, which is going to be the second line. Let's see where I'm at. Okay, pretty much. So what you're going to do once you fill your jar, I use a chopstick. I don't know what the proper name for the tool that you use, but you use it to take out any of the bubbles, the air bubbles that might be in here. You're gonna wipe off the top of your jar with vinegar to take away any residue, any grease. my canning lids. These are 4-jars. I love 4-jar brand canning lids, but I also love Ball. So those are the 2 that I use. You cannot reuse these for canning, but you can use them after you can for dry goods. And my rings. The rings are reusable. So I'm gonna put the lid, the rings, put the lid on. Put the ring on. Do it fingertip tight. And I'm gonna set this aside until I fill the other ones. So you're gonna fill it. Be careful, it's really hot. And you need it to be hot because if you put cold liquid or cold food into a boiling hot pot, it's gonna crack your jar, and that's not good. Okay, 1/2 inch headspace. Let's see where I'm at. Oh, that might be a little more. Let's see. That's a little more, so I'm gonna take a little bit out. I think I'm good. So I'm gonna debubble it. Wipe off the top. Get all the extra applesauce that I spilled off of the top. Add my lid. My ring. I'm actually going to, if you want to see how this is bubbling, when you water bath can, it needs to cover the top of the jar by 1 inch. The water. So once I put all of these jars in, it will. I'll fill the rest of my jars. I will put a link for the lids in the description box so you can know how to order them. Be careful, it's really hot. To fill 1 more jar, so that's 5 quart jars from 10 pounds of apples. Let's see, do I have enough to fill it? So with applesauce, it's the same time, either quarts, if you're doing quarts or you're doing pints, you process for 20 minutes. So it does not matter what size you're doing. It all needs to be processed for 20 minutes. So I don't know if I have enough to fill this quart jar. So what I am going to do, once again, okay, so I don't have enough to fill this quart jar. So what I'm going to do is I went and washed a pint jar, and I'm going to use this one instead. Thank goodness the time of processing is the same, so it really doesn't matter. But I at least want to get 1 more on the shelf. It's going to be the same amount of headspace on this one. You're going to leave it a 1/2 inch of headspace. And whatever's left over in my crock pot, I'll just put it in the refrigerator for the kids. Okay, perfect. So now I know 10 pounds of apples gives me 4.5 quarts of applesauce. Okay, let's get this lid on here. Okay. I'm gonna put this right down in the middle. This is a jar. I have no idea what this is called, actually. It's a jar grabber. You use it when you can so you don't burn your hands. But this is something that you need to have if you're gonna water bath can or pressure can, because the jars get very, very hot. You know what? I don't feel comfortable with this lid. I mean this ring, so I'm gonna change it. I feel like it's crooked. I feel like when I put it on, it had a gap under there. So I'm gonna get rid of this one. I will be right back. Okay, got a new one. Yep, better, much better. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in the middle. You can come look at how this is set up. You need to have 1 inch of water above the lids, which I do. Let me add some more water to that. This is gonna come back up to a boil, and I will be able to start the time once it comes up to a boil. Okay. I'm gonna let it heat up, and then I'll be back to start my time once it returns to a boil. This always makes me so happy. Let's check in on our jars. About 8 minutes left to go, and they are boiling away. Plenty of water on top. Yay! So exciting. Okay, so our timer's done. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the stove. And what you do is you're gonna move carefully, because it's very hot, you're gonna move the canner over to the other side of the stove so that it cools down. That's hot. You're gonna move the lid and you're gonna let it sit. Oops. You're gonna let it sit for about 5 minutes. Sometimes I do 10, depends. Not a hard fast rule, but at least 5 minutes so that it kind of regulates with the temperature in here. And then we're gonna remove it from there and put it on the counter to sit. Okay, our applesauce is done. Our applesauce is done. Okay, so you're gonna lift it out with the water. Be careful. And bring it over to your counter. You wanna have at least 1 inch space between the jars so that they can cool properly. So put them just like that. The difference between 4 jar lids, which I still think that they're great, and ball lids is that the click on ball lids is louder than the 4 jar lids. So sometimes you don't hear the 4 jar lids click, even though they seal. But the ball will knock you out. It's so loud. I love it. Okay, so here we go. Out of 10 pounds of apples, we got 4 quarts and 2 pint-sized jars. And so what I'm gonna do is, once they've cooled, I'll leave them here for 12 to 24 hours untouched. I will take the rings off, make sure that they've sealed, and if they've sealed, I'll clean off the jars, label them, and put them in the cabinet for later so that I can give it to my family. And I just wanna encourage you, if I can do it, you can do it. I had to learn how to make this. I didn't know how to do this when I lived back on the West Coast. I had no idea how to make applesauce, let alone can it, but I learned. And so I'm gonna encourage you that you can do it too. So what I'll do is I will write the recipe that I used in the description box. I will also put a link for 4 jars, the lids, and I will, is there anything else I needed to put in there? I don't think so. But if you have any questions, make sure you let me know. I am so thankful that you joined me. I pray that you guys have a blessed week, and I can't wait to see you again. Hey guys, so it's the next day and I want to check the seals on my applesauce. Okay, so here we go. I've removed the rings from most of them. Oh, looks like I forgot one. Take this off. Now to check the seal, you can touch on the top of it. You see it's not bouncing back. But the big test is lifting it up by the seal. So I've lifted up the lid. It has sealed. This one has sealed. This one has sealed. This one has sealed. And our last little pint, yay, they've all sealed. Thank you, Jesus. So there we go. We've canned applesauce from beginning to end. We've made it in the crock pot, 10 pounds of apples, made 4 quarts and a pint of applesauce. They have been canned in the water bath, and then they are ready to be put on the shelves. Thank you so much for joining me, and be encouraged. You can do this. If I can do it, you can do it, and I'm here to help. And if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for joining me, friends.